Hello, it is a great pleasure to be here with you and to think about the great invitation that Dr. Kopp and Dr. Kalansis makes to me. I met they a couple of years ago in Urbana-Champaign and in the laboratory that Dr. Kopp have, and it was a really, really nice opportunity to know, to learn more, and so on. But in this moment, I am here, and for me, to share with you is a great opportunity. And this collaboration, the intention basically of this collaboration is a great point for a reformulation, if you like, or maybe to think more about this issue and so on. This contribution so intends a reformulation of the underlying spirit and concepts of the current online distance program to articulate them with social networks, basically virtual worlds and software associated in an avant-garde tune according to the global and local social context and needs, specific needs that demands and so on, that demands the digital culture and informational society. This intention is not to suggest the SIVI's definition, but to continue the study and research of the design, implementation of them, to experience different strategies for the formal programs online, the non-formals, for instance, the MOOCs, and informal with the giant media like Facebook, Meta nowadays, Instagram, and so on. All of them impacting really in the teaching and learning practices from the social, cognitive, connectivist, constructivist point of view. And this is great, a great opportunity, as I told you, to review and include some reflections not only about the incorporation of technology in a supporting role, following the instrumentalist and mechanical, linear, basically, understanding of educational technology, but provoking a shift on the to a contextualized, holistic relational, interpretative, and critic perspective, which are very useful for a better, wide understanding of the contemporary technology boom of the virtual world that impacts on education. Considering their roles in the production of knowledge. But what are the new educational technology? Where they are? Where they are included? The new educational techno-ecologies of the virtual world that we have to include augmented reality, virtual reality, metaverses, and so on, are growing as a set of digital environments in the same way that they provide digital socio-formative impulses of new kind of interaction in the middle of they are fastness, lower and lower costs, but reinforce an illusion of inclusion by the use of the cell phone, internet access, video games, and so on. But we have to think also that if these zones, countries, group have connectivity. The advent of the virtual worlds generation, and now with this emerging immersive technology as metaverses, presents severe mutation of the sociocultural processes, produce baffled behaviors of the people and community, looking not only for a social equity and cohesion. So as it is important to reflect this situation in a critical way. Indeed, the diverse educational technological platforms have not emerged and haven't been used for an educational human development, but they perform formative programs for the people where they making decisions, were designed before for that. It's been well understood that the invisible mediation in virtual worlds and others are contemporary issues looking for economic effective restructuration to run according to the promise of high profits, basically run through artificial intelligence and so on. In this way, essentially, education is have to be think in towards link to an investment, development, research, and innovation. Distance education would is a concept very interesting if you remember how many years the programs have, and to remember that open and distance learning reflects both the fact that all or most of the teaching is designed and conducted by someone removing time and space from students, and the aim is to include great dimension of openness and flexibility in terms of curricula, in terms of access, the structure, professor trained in the new technology, among many issues. By the way, the distance education efforts more in pandemic and post-pandemic times that all of us suffered intend to design formal teaching activities according to each program, contents, groups, social companies, niche needs, and so on. But the virtual worlds provoke, and the social networks obviously, provoke an increased strong informal atmosphere beyond to know that is the great influence of the digital culture. Could include bias, interference, causes in some cases by irrelevant variables. By, and to the point reaching to the point to some improvisation or more mechanic stereotyped in detriment of serious effort of online courses. What is the digital culture? The digital culture is structured around a complex electronic large-scale environment and nets. It represents a fundamental transformation in the human development and social trends in the way of living, work, learn, interact, etc. But this is very interesting. The post-digital culture shouldn't be understood as a further historical moment or that after the digital once has lost its novelty or salience. The post-digital culture implies a different socio-electronic philosophy and epistemology, supported by ideas related to the virtual worlds, what kind of digital mediation and others are provoking. The virtual worlds have launched a new cultural arena, but not always open and respectful, as I said before, of diversity, democracy. Many times they get a strong sense of xenophobia by groups' influence. In another way, to produce knowledge today indeed is embed in the advanced high technology, linked to the immersive virtual worlds that the augmented reality, virtual reality that I said before. The meta, I will take some seconds to refer to metaverses as a virtual environment created in the cyberspace which simulates a place where the people encounter each other and do things in diverse fictional scenarios by technological peripherals, including some glasses, gloves, creation of 3D avatars, and so on, for precise interactions designed before with people do through holograms and so on, are communicating and in the same mode and the same time in a real interacting the real and digital world together as well. Indeed, they aren't new and aren't finished to appear on and on through artificial intelligence in artifacts, software, etc., making lower and lower their costs. Digital world. But simultaneously, a lot of them were involved in certain trends that nobody knows the progressions and for that, another point that I said before, I suppose that it's very interesting to see, to study the post-cultural, the post-digital culture, because the proposal of an altering thinking of the human technology relationship and to deepen what finally technology is, its evolution and its historical projects like Finber think. For example, from the Anthropoceno to the Tecnoceno in Spanish. So the concept of post-digital show limits to achieve a total and fluid comprehension about the formation of the people. It has resulted, according to Chandrik, in a disenchantment in their understanding of the incidence in the human technology relationship and, of course, impacting education as well. Well, I would like to share with you that in the case of education, training is necessary to research the unknown real achievement if the technology really improve the learning processes or not. From a pedagogic, reflective point of view, it should question what the digital social relationship, what meaning might have in the technology, the virtual world for education. Well, since the technology, the techno-ecologies have a huge formative impact, we have chances to care, they have chances to care of social interest, aims and expectations. Well, the strength of that gives an experiential education. we have to remember Cole, Dewey, of course, Kurt Lewin, Piaget, and so on, and the opportunities of experiential education, many of physical and virtual possibilities of given, many possibilities of observation, adopting different perspective roles, anticipating situation by social games, and so on. So it is to be understood as an educational philosophy, which implies an intentional design, purposive approach to teaching and learning by doing and work in situ, to develop strong virtual skills and to mobilize attitude by direct, including fictional, in our case, experiences to produce imaginative knowledge. Why interconnecting people with geolocalization, interoperability to elaborate, share contents, in this case, using, for example, automatic software, machine learning, deep learning, and so on. But we have to think in an holistic education to increase not only knowledge, but on one hand, to focus reflection to clarify values, and on the other hand, to produce a shift to provoke a transformation of the traditional technical instrumental paradigm towards an expressive Habermas, an interpretative, remember the left, as roles for reflecting and dealing with different approaches for educational action. I suppose, in my opinion, that the approach STEAM plus D, science, technology, engineering, art, mathematics, and design, incorporate an interdisciplinary cosmovision to produce knowledge. So before to take them into account into the design among many variables, because it's very important to design after didactic activities and provoke interaction that is a methodology, are strategies of teaching, virtual teaching, that they are very important. This perspective means that decision makers have to make sustainable investments in digital machinery, software, and basically in training what kind of curricula, the instructional design, informatic design, professor, student, of course, in the spirit, conception, and implementation of the virtual world immersed in metaverse, that said before. But the worst point of that are the finishing, because we are reckoned in a little description some strengths of the virtual, producing a unique profile of each person who enters on there, and so on. But the worst point is that finishing the privacy, the security, which avoid and develop a social control and a cultural discrimination mechanism. We suggest a complementary and critical engagement of virtual world, social networks, and distance education programs. Because why? The advent of the new rules of producing and circulating cultural contents need non-traditional methodologies to make a reformulation or a cultural analysis, if you like, of the new grammar and syntaxes, of the mix and conversions of the symbolic virtual codes. without doubt the impact in the socialization, education, training of the people would be different. To think and create alterings, meaning and so alternative to the algorithm design and meanings to build and to shape the core of education today is really the main point. So the conclusion that we have to reach finally, in my opinion, it is an educational hard work, but very significant and pedagogically useful to reconsider the design of the distance education in a narrow articulation with the social digital ecology like the metaverses that are on fashion, for example, because they are a predominant social influence and important. For that, they deserve an alternative alternate focalization. By now, these proposals are in the beginning of this articulation. The question is if it's worth to do it, because there are not grandiloquent evidence to improve the teaching and learning processes yet in general, in particular way, to enrich the internal dynamic of the production of knowledge through the incorporation of virtual worlds, but basically to develop the value of respecting diversity, overcoming inequity, enhance democracy, etc. I am not pessimistic but realistic. In general, the majority of the educational decision and investment, as you know, are not depending only about the technology, but political and economic issues more and more are dedicated to incorporate, design, distribute globally equipment and software for educational projects. A physical or online or hybrid one. The technology is here and it's present without doubt, many times producing illuminating idea. But the proposal is to design digital environments deserve critics. They deserve critics. Rethinking about the sense of the software for crucial intervention as ethical proposal, which sure impact to conform minds, hearts, and wills. That is the key of preparing open minds and to deal with about unknown futures. Well, thank you very much for staying with me, and I say bye bye.